Alright, so Shalom. All praise, honor, and glory going to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Kakadash, double honors to the elders and apostles, a great millstone. Salutation to all you occupants out there pushing this truth with all honesty and sincerity by way of the highways and byways, going down the streets teaching and preaching, and also by way of the internet. Shalom to you very few aquaf that's out there listening and learning. Going back to the names, Yahweh being the Heavenly Father name, which means He is or He exists. Hashem means coming in their name, and what the world ignorantly calls JC or Jesus Christ. His name is not Jesus Christ, it's not Jesus Christos, it's not Yeshua, it's not Yehoshua, it's not Yeshaya, it's not Ashaya, it is Yahweh Shai, alright, which means He saves or He delivers. Alright, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans are the true biblical Hebrew Israelites. This is your brother Nayap, and I'm back with another lesson. I'm gonna try to go, y'all know me, I say it may, be in between a good 30 minutes to an hour. I'm just gonna say that. Right. So, but I'm gonna try to make it pretty quick for y'all. Nothing too crazy. So, I got an article and 3 videos. So, I'm gonna just try to make it pretty snippy. But what I'm gonna do is I'm probably gonna play the videos first. So, just bear with me. In 2 seconds, y'all.
Yep. So go on get your... Man, it's a good day in society, fellas. They cut the food stamps. Coochie right back to being $40 again, man. Yep. So go on get your wallets ready. Go on get ready for the hey big head text. Go on get ready for the I ain't seen you in a while stranger. Just get ready for all them type of text messages. This is the moment we all been waiting for. Government assistance that made these women feel like they don't need a man in the household. And now they about to see how much they actually need a man around. Yep, coochie about to be a lot cheaper now, man. Y'all tap in, y'all get ready.
So my child just told me they're shutting down the school buses. Is that true? Bro, if they shut down school buses, like what the hell? They really doing too much. First EBT, now school buses. Like, what the hell?
Tell me why I just got off the phone with somebody from the federal government, right?
Now, this big Keisha right here, so she gonna let you know what's going on. All right, she gonna let you know a little about what's going on in the inside.
Said tell people the truth. She said she'd been working for Social Security. I took notes. She said she was working for Social Security for 15 plus years. She said that they had a meeting and Donald Trump only wanted to pay troops and FBI. And then a judge said no. You can't just pay the troops and the fucking FBI. So then they said that they were going to give the federal workers something called a CR, which is funding for 3 months of time, basically. They're not going to get that, and they're not getting back paid either. 24 days, no pay. They missed the pay period, so that's what the real issue is, because they've never gone to the point where they've missed a whole ass pay period. Like, this shit is crazy. Then she said that all of their landlords and all the people are calling for their bills and this and that, and they can't fucking pay them. So I had to skip payments for this individual for a couple months because I'm like, I'm not finna let you be fucked up off of some shit that's not your fucking problem. Like, you know what I'm saying? You pay your bills. Like, it's not your fault they're not paying you. That's fucked up. I am, like, mad. What do you mean you're not paying people? Then why the fuck do I have to come to work? Then she said that as soon as this motherfucker started laying off all the black people, he made work from home inadequate. You gotta come into the office tomorrow. How the fuck am I gonna get to the office with no money? I don't have any gas. We can't eat. And you're asking me to come in here to work. Because this motherfucker's intended on firing every motherfucking body. That's why.
So there you go, man. Alright, Big Bertha. She already had let you niggas know. Alright, she let you know. You keep seeing it on TikTok. Alright, more videos that you see on TikTok is, you see the Sora 2 AI videos, of November 1st. Basically, you got a whole bunch of niggas. This like they made a video. They was like, oh, um instead of what you call that, instead of Black Friday, it's the reverse Black Friday because people are going in, taking what they want, leaving. All right, so and like what we said, they're going to try to shut down a lot of these stores. All right, you ain't gonna be able to go in there and get your food, stuff like that. All right, if you ain't got the funds. Now, even with that being said, anybody just going in there to go get their food, even I heard Apostle Tahar was saying, yeah, you're gonna have people that when you're coming out with your grocery cart, you might get knocked upside your motherfucking head, or knocked out, or at gunpoint for your groceries. They don't want your money; they want your groceries. All right, we live in a very much so obese society. All right, and one thing I do want to get as well is this. Hold on. Matter of fact, let's go to this. All right, let's see. Uh, all right, so let's do this. What? Fuck. What do I want to put? How? All right, watch this. How many people in America are obese? Current obesity statistics in America. As of the most recent data, around 2024, about 42 to 43% of adults in the United States are classified as obese. All right, and majority of these are women. Okay, because there's more women, all right, than men. It says this translates to roughly 140 million adults given the U.S. population size. Additional context: obesity is typically defined by body mass BMI 30 over higher. All right, and there's no reason why you should be obese. Okay, there's no reason why you should be obese, man. All right, you have to have discipline. You have to have control from your hand to mouth. All right, you have to control that. I never got that. All right, it says this childhood obesity rates are also significant, with around 19 to 20% of children or adolescents considered obese. So you even have 20% of the children of these fat motherfuckers is having children. All right, they're feeding the hell out of their kids, and then you got kids who's just obese in general. It says if you want, I can provide more detailed breakdowns, my age, and all that. All right, so there we don't have to look no more, man. There's no reason why you should be obese in America. All right, there's no reason why you should be obese anywhere at any time. All right, so let's get to this article. I just want to read a little bit, just a little bit of this is from a couple days ago. It says SNAP recipients told to buy shelf-stable food or to go banks or to food banks as funding deadline looms. All right, and what you have with the food banks is that you have a whole bunch of people in line for these food banks. They're standing in line for more than four or 5 hours, man. It's very much bad, and the food banks are running out of food. It says SNAP recipients told to buy shelf stable. All right, so you gotta get rice, okay, things that can last for a couple months. You know what I'm saying? Maybe even a year. These are a good time for you ladies to learn how to make bread. All right, learn how to make bread. You know what I'm saying? Things like that, man. All right. But hey, they letting you know that on November 1st, you niggas is chopped. You niggas is cooked, I should say. Not chopped, but you cooked, I should say. All right, it's a wrap for you. All right, them SNAP benefits and shit like that ain't gonna work. And if you try to do something to people that doesn't have SNAP benefits, well, that can go left as well. All right, so let's get into this report. It says recipients of SNAP food assistance benefits across the country face a looming deadline come November 1st. Their cards may not get refilled because of the government shutdown in Washington. And also with the government shutdown, the ATC, the air traffic controllers, aren't getting paid, so they're not going to work. So that means no flights. Flights are being delayed. It's taking a million years just for somebody to get from point A to point B. They're shutting this shit down. All right, we've been telling y'all this was gonna happen. It says the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which serves nearly 42 million people each month, and that's how all your kids get fat and obese, and that's why all these women is fat as fuck. All right, because they just sit on their ass, lay on their back, get fucked, push out babies, and feed themselves with Twinkies all day. It says allocates money to states on a monthly basis. Benefits were largely interrupted over the past 3 weeks because funding of October was allocated to states before the shutdown began on October 1st. It says, but in a letter to SNAP, state agency and regional directors on October 10th, the Department of Agriculture warned that there would not be enough funding to pay full SNAP benefits, also known as food stamps, what they used to call them back in the day. Like, it looked like monopoly money. In November, if the shutdown persists, it says many states have announced that they plan to suspend SNAP benefits if the shutdown continues into next month. That could upend people's ability to buy food and unprecedented scale. At an unprecedented scale, it says the program has not lapsed during any government shutdown in recent history, so this never happened before. All right, and people going to start going crazy. All right, so like you see, like this video, I might play a little bit on a little bit on the fair use side, but it says as November 1st approaches, some state leaders are recommending that people run to food banks or use their remaining benefits to buy non-perishable items. If you have accrued SNAP benefits, which if you want some perishable items, you should probably just go ahead and just really probably start ordering them online or get what you can. Maybe like, when you can find, I mean, it is what it is, man. It says use those. So, but a lot of people that's gonna have problems is like the lady you see in this video. This lady is fat as fuck. She's out of shape, and a lot of you niggas is too. It says if you have SNAP benefits previously, all right. It says previous months on your account it says use those funds now to buy shelf stable foods that can last through November and beyond. All right, because they don't know how long the government gonna be shut down. Like it says, the Arkansas Department of Human Services says on its website. All right, and by the time they turn that government back on, man, I hope and I believe that the digital ID is going to be global by the time they turn that government on. All right, it says there's no way that our charitable food network or the system in this country can provide that much food overnight or quickly. See, it is an impossible task, said Catherine D. Amato, CEO of the Great Boston Food Bank. Her organization is already receiving calls from people asking where they can go to feed their family, she said. And a lot of you niggas is fat. See, I'm typing, look, man, let me tell y'all something. When shit get rough, and I'm already living a rough life, so it's nothing for me to take one of them DiGiorno pieces, split that bitch into fours, and I can last 4 days off of it. So a lot of y'all niggas gonna be starving. It's a lot of people just gonna be starving, all right, and getting knocked off for your food, all right. But we're gonna get into the scriptures very, very much soon. It says D'Amato estimated that suspended SNAP benefits would create a deficit of up to 56 million meals in Massachusetts in November. At least one state, Pennsylvania, has already stopped issuing SNAP benefits. The state announced that starting October 16th, SNAP benefits will not be paid until the federal government shutdown ends and funds are released to PA. And then it just goes down to Texas as well. It says Texas, meanwhile, the next month SNAP benefits won't be issued if the shutdown continues past October 27th. And in Wisconsin, SNAP recipients got a letter this week informing them that even their remaining funds from October may not carry over. Benefits may not be available in November, the letter said. This may include any funds remaining of your card. At the end of October, you may want to use your benefits to stock up on food before the end of October. All right. It also says the state treasurers of Oregon and Massachusetts said Thursday on a press call that their states have no contingency plans for SNAP if the federal government doesn't provide the funding. State budgets can't afford to cover the full cost people's benefits they added. All right, so they ain't got enough food, man. They gonna have to ration out shit. Okay, 2 cans of bean, 1 thing of bread. Next, 2 things of beans. You seen what they was doing in COVID. All right, but a lot of people now they just gonna start taking shit. And nigga, if you get knocked upside your head for a can of beans, nigga, can't say we ain't tell you that these things was gonna happen, man. You know, I ain't even gonna play the video. The article was enough. Let's go ahead and get into these scriptures, man. All right, so I'm gonna get into the famine type scriptures. You already know. I'm going to the NLT and also the KJV. And like what I said, I'll try to make this pretty fast for y'all. Lord willing, this be edifying. This is Psalms 33 and 15. It says, He fashioned their hearts alike. He considered all their works. There is no king save by the multitude of a host. A mighty man is not delivered by much strength. Okay, it says, and horse is a vain thing for safety, neither shall he deliver any by his strength. Behold, the eye of the Lord Yahweh is upon them that fear him, upon them that hope of in his mercy, to deliver their soul from death and to keep them alive in famine. It says, our soul waiteth for the Lord Yahweh. He is our help and our shield. All right, and let's get this in the KJV. All right, Psalms 33 and 15, it says, He made their hearts, all right, meaning their minds, all right, so He understands everything they do. The best equipped army cannot save a king, nor is great strength enough to save a warrior. All right, letting you know that in these times, you can't depend on your gun, you can't depend on the numbers that you have, or the intelligence that you know of, or your war tactics, all right? Again, verse 16, it says, Psalms 33 and 16, the NLT, it says, the best equipped army cannot save a king, nor is great strength enough to save a warrior. It says, don't count on your war house to give you victory. See, what's your war house? All right, your artillery. You got your all your, you got your armor, you got your sword, you got what you need. All right, a couple spare arrows, But now, you got today, you got a couple clips. You might got 2 ARs in a backpack on you, in the backpack, or like 2 pistols, 1 pistol on each side, 1 in the back. Nigga trying to go out like Rambo and shit. But y'all niggas gonna get fucked up. It don't matter. It says don't count on your war house, your war horse to give you victory. All right, so your war horse, your strength, your gun, all right, your artillery, whatever you got. Not war house, Salakia, war horse, to give you victory. It says for all its strength, it cannot save you. It says, but the Lord Yahweh watches over you, over those who fear him. All right, a lot of our people don't fear the Lord because you still see them eating all kinds of abominations. It says, those who rely on his unfailing love, all right, it says he rescues them from death and keeps them alive in times of famine. We put our hope in the Lord Yahweh. He is our help and our shield. All right, so he's going to help us and protect us. All right, whatever we need, how about Shem Yahushua gonna look out for us? All right, you gotta know that and have faith in that. All right, but these people don't. All right, these people don't. All right, so let me go ahead and get my next one. This is Jeremiah chapter 5 and verse 5. It says, I will get me unto the great man and will speak unto them, for they have known the way of the Lord Yahweh and the judgment of their power. But these have altogether broken the yoke and burst the bonds. All right. It says, people be going off, man. It says, wherefore a lion out of the forest shall slay them. All right. So when you look at this story, it goes up to Jerusalem's godlessness. All right. It's because in verse 1 it says, run ye to and fro from the streets of Jerusalem and see and know and seek in the broad places thereof, if you can find a man, if there be any that execute judgeth, that seeketh the truth, and I will pardon it. All right. And basically, they wasn't, because if you go down, let me just read. I start at verse 3. It says, O Lord Yahweh, says, are not thine eyes upon the truth? Thou hast stricken them, but they have not grieved. Thou hast consumed them, but they have refused to receive correction. They have made their faces harder than a rock. They have refused to return. Return to the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. All right, let's get this in the NLT right quick. I just want to see what this verse 3 say in the NLT. NLT, it says, Lord Yahweh, you are searching for honesty. You struck your people, but they paid no attention. You crushed them, but they refused to be corrected. They are determined, with their faces set like stone. They have refused to repent. Our people to this day refuse to repent and refuse to acknowledge Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. All right, but they want to get fat off of Esau's system, be obese off of Esau's system. So the Lord got something for y'all niggas. Anyway, going down to verse 5. I'll skip down to verse 5. I will get me unto the great men, and I will speak unto them, for they have known the way of the Lord Yahweh, and the judgment of their power. It says, but these have altogether broken the yoke and the burst of the bonds. It says, wherefore a lion out of the forest shall slay them, and a wolf of the evening shall spoil them. A leper shall watch over their cities. Everyone that goeth out thence shall be torn in pieces, because their transgressions are many, and their backslidings are increased. All right. And that's what's going to happen to a lot of you people that's out there, man. You know, you're going to end up trying to go out there, trying to get some food for the family, or try to rob a nigga. And man, or you trying to seek some food or trying to make a lick on somebody, and then a fucking lion or a pack of coyotes come and get your ass, or, you know what I'm saying, a mountain lion, pack of mountain lions, or a gator. You know what I'm saying? You got people that live in Florida, man. It's hella fucking alligators and crocodiles and shit. You know, a lot of these things be traps. They might try to lure you in for a trap. You know, we enter into some very, very much dark times. All right. It says, let's get this word for backsliding. I just want to get it. All right, so like what I said, man, a lot of y'all shouldn't be obese, man. There's no reason to be obese.
Strong's H 4878. Meshuva. Meshuva.
It says turning away. All right, so y'all turned away. All right, backsliding, turning away. Okay, it says a turning away. When you go down here to the Hebrew Chaldee lexicon, it says a turning away. All right, it says the turning away of fools, which the Lord isn't a fool. It says turning away from Yahweh. See, turning away from Yahweh, and then it gave us Jeremiah 8 and 5. What is Jeremiah 8 and 5? Why they give us Jeremiah 8 and 5? When this is the people of Jerusalem sliding back a perpetual backsliding. All right, back a perpetual backsliding. They hold fast deceit. They refuse to turn. Our people always hold fast on deceit, deception, the lies that Esau, Edom tell them. Hey, everything gonna be all right when we put the system back up. Everybody gonna get their benefits and everybody gonna be cool. You know, they just gonna suck you niggas right on in. You know, that's a good precept as well. Let me go back though. All right, so Jeremiah chapter 5 and verse 7 now, it says, how shall I pardon thee for this? Thy children have forsaken me and sworn by them that are no gods, all right, which I had fed them to the full. They then committed adultery and assembled themselves by troops in the harlot's houses. All right, and hey, same thing today, man. Let's get this in the NLT. Same thing today, though. Our people don't never learn nothing. It's Jeremiah 5 and 5. In the NLT, it says, "So I will go and speak to their leaders. Surely they know the ways of the Lord Yahweh and understand the Most High laws. But the leaders, too, as one man, had thrown off the Most High's yoke and broken his chains. So now a lion from the forest will attack them. A wolf from the desert will pounce on them. A leopard will lurk near their towns." Man, the Lord can do anything to you, man. It says, "Tearing apart any who dare to venture out." All right, it's gonna come a time, man. I'm telling you, y'all seen the movie I Am Legend? He was hunting a deer and then a lion came to get it. It says, "For their rebellion is great." All right, and our people is very rebellious towards Yahweh Shem Yahushua and his prophets, and their sins are many. It says, "How can I pardon you? For even your children have turned from me. They have sworn by gods that are not gods at all. I fed my people until they were full, but they thanked me by committing adultery." All right, committing adultery in this context is going after different gods. All right, different false gods. All right, worshiping false gods. All right, and our people was actually committing adultery too. All right, that's the sins go through the roof for our people. It says, "And line it up at the brothels." It said, all right. So in the brothels, man, let's see if we can get the word for or matter of fact, let's see if we can just get it up here. It said brothels, right? Let's see what brothels is. A business established where sex workers are available for hire, right? Strip clubs, all right? So when it says, "But they thank me," Jeremiah 5 and 7 in NLT, where it says, "But they thank me by committing adultery and lining up at brothels," all right? Yeah, and having basically being intimate, being all up into these different really loving and really praising these false gods when they are not no gods and stuff like that at all, man. Our people line up to these churches and shit like that, man. This whole time you was getting food stamps. The food stamps wasn't supposed to be for you women to lay on your back, all right, and just collect a nigga's money. All right, a child does not need $1,000 a month, man. I don't give a fuck what you're talking about, nigga. I don't even need. Hey, I don't know what's wrong with y'all people, man. Y'all females are something different, but anyway, not all you ladies, but man, some of y'all are be going all the way the fuck off. All right, but let me get this right quick. This is and let me get this in the KJV first. This is Lamentations 4 and 9. It says, "They that be slain with the sword are better than they that be slain with hunger." All right, because we coming into some times, man. You just gonna see, like, wow, this is like one of my favorite subjects. All right, to talk about. One of my favorite things to talk about. Prophecies to talk about. All right, is hunger and famine, because you're gonna start seeing people who can't feed their kids. You're gonna see all them you're gonna see all them bitches who was saying all that shit about their baby daddy go right back to that nigga which they should have been with in the first place. All right, and all kinds of things, man. You're gonna be seeing this happening. All right, like the dude said, he was like, get ready for the big good morning big head text and shit like that. Now you can take a bitch to McDonald's and get her 2 cheeseburgers and $10, and you got her ass for the week. But in these times that we moving in, I don't think you brothers really even want to be dealing with these women. How treacherous, how deceitful, and how spiritually wicked they are. I don't think you may even want to may even want one, but hey, they get scooped up. It says, "For these pine away, stricken through for want of the fruits of the field. All right, for these pine away. What does pine away mean? All right, dwindle, to pine away, take away. Let me see. Um, pine, pine, H2, pine.
Strong's H2100. Zoov. Zoov.
It literally says to die, flow, to flow away, basically, to flow away, to die away. All right, pine away. So to die, to flow. All right, to die. All right, so a lot of these people are going to die. It says they, Lamentations 4:9 in the KJV, they that be slain with the sword are better than they that be slain with hunger, for they pine away, they flow away, they die away, stricken. All right, stricken through for want of the fruits of the field, what stricken means. Okay, this is why you need to pay attention to the elders and apostles, starting off with the elders and apostles of the great millstone on down. All right, to the brothers who teaches the likewise doctrine, man, because we go into the words, man, we go into definitions and stuff. All right, so let's see what the word stricken mean. All right, H1856, the car.
Strong's H1856. Dakar.
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 All right, it says to starve. All right, down here in the Strong's definitions, it says to stab, by analogy to starve. All right, all right. It says figuratively to revile. All right. It says pierce, strike, thrust, through, wound. All right, but it says to it says to starve, man. All right. All right, so there's gonna be a lot of people that's starving out here, dog. All right, so let me see. Let's get this in the NLT. It's Lamentations 4:9. It says, "For those," it says, "those killed by the sword are better off than those who die of hunger. Starving, they waste away for lack of food from the fields." Right? Because if you don't have no workers for the fields, that mean ain't no food gonna be coming in. If ain't no food coming in, then what? There's just starvation starting to happen. There's everybody starting to panic. Everybody starting to get ready to go crazy and shit. Motherfuckers are gonna start shooting squirrels and hunting your animals. You know, the first thing I can imagine that'd be on the list is your house pets, or you might be on the house pet menu. You know, I remember the bishops from Connecticut was going into how you got these people with exotic animals, and I know I got an exotic animal, but I ain't got nothing like these motherfuckers got, man. These, like, he was like the brothers talking about, yeah, these motherfuckers be having like tigers and bears and they do alligators and shit. You know, when the motherfuckers get free, it's a wrap for your ass. And the Lord, you might be like, oh, they can't get free, man. The Lord can easily make that cage just open. You know what I'm saying? Like it's an impossible thing for the Lord to do something. I hate how they put restrictions on our power. This is Amos 8:7. Okay, so this starvation shit getting real, y'all. Amos 8:7 in the KJV. I'm gonna read down to 12. It says, "The Lord Yahweh have sworn by the excellency of Jacob. Okay, surely I will never forget any of their works." All right, so all the works that we doing, man. You know, it says, shall not the land tremble for this? All right, now it says, and every one mourn that dwelleth therein, and shall it rise up holy, holy, or holy, woolly, woolly, as a flood. It says, and it shall be cast out and drowned as by the flood of Egypt. And it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord Yahweh, that I will cause the sun to go down at noon, and I will darken the earth in the clear day. It says, and I will turn your feast into mourning. All right, which is happening. All right, turn the feast into mourning, because our people, like what it says, like in verse 7, it says, the Lord have sworn by the excellency of Jacob, surely I will never forget any of their works. All right. And you got to realize you got the good works of the elect, all right, and then you got the wicked works are people to be, just going off, all right. But it's, down in verse 10 it says, "And I will turn your feasts into mourning, and I will, and all your songs into lamentation." All right. And if you think about it right now, our songs is like what it says, the grinder. What is that? The grinder. Let me try to look it up. Give me 2 seconds. Yeah, I'll get that right after this. Well, I'll just get it now. Fuck it. It's Ecclesiastes. Because I don't want to forget it. 12 and 3, where I want to start at. It's the same thing. All right, it's the same scripture. Basically, this is Ecclesiastes 12 and 2. It says, "While the sun," in the KJV, "while the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain, that in the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease, because they are few." Right? The grinders cease. Right? The work. The grinders cease. The workers. All right? Because they are few, and those that look out of the windows be darkened. And the doors shall be shut in the streets when the sound of the grinding is low, and he shall rise up at the voice of the bird. All right. And all the daughters of music shall be brought low. All right. When you rise up early in the morning, ain't no work. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no more going out, getting your lunchbox, going out, to the construction site or, wherever. All right, to your office job, you know, ain't none of that. It says, "And the daughters of music shall be brought low." This music is terrible. All right, let's get this in the NLT before I go back to the. Before I go back, Ecclesiastes 12 and 3 says, "Remember him before your legs, the guards of your house start to tremble, and before your shoulders, the strong men stoop. Remember him before your teeth, your few remaining servants stop grinding, and before your eyes, the women looking through the windows see dimly." All right, niggas. Hey man, these niggas ain't fucking with you women no more, man. They clying the clubs and shit. Ain't no clubs. Dudes ain't going to the clubs. All right. It says, "Remember him before the door to life opportunities is closed and the sound of the work fades." It says, "Now you rise at the first chirping of the birds, but then all their sounds will grow faint." See? There you go, man. There you go. All right, so let's go back. Amos 8 and 7. Well, 8 and 10. "And I will turn your feasts into mourning, and all your songs into lamentation. I will bring up sackcloth upon all loins, and baldness upon every head. And I will make it as mourning of an only son, and the end thereof as a bitter day. Behold, the days cometh, saith the Lord Yahweh, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread nor of thirst for water, but of hearing of the word." Hearing the words of the Lord Yahweh. All right, and this is another famine. All right, once again, like I was saying today or yesterday when I was out there on the highways and byways 24 hours ago, basically 16, 24, what, 19 hours ago. All right, it says, I was saying it like, man, we ain't gonna be out there for long, and we keep saying that, like, hey, man, it's gonna come a time that y'all ain't gonna be able to find us. All right, and this internet gonna be taken down. All right, it says, Amos 8 and 12, it says, "And they shall wander from sea to sea, and from north even to the east, and they shall run to and fro to seek the word of the Lord Yahweh, and shall not find it." And by the time that happens, man, you niggas is over with. Let's get this in the NLT. Amos 8 and 7. "Now the Lord Yahweh have sworn his oath by his own name, the pride of Israel. I will never forget the wicked things you have done." See, because our people, There's plenty of, even though you got the elect that's out here pushing the truth and stuff like that, but this for the wickedness that our people been doing, man. You know, and like what I said, all them mukbangs you've been going to, seafood broils or whatever you call them. All right, eating all kinds of, just eating with whatever your mind, whatever you lust after. All right, that shit is brought low, and y'all gonna start going crazy. You basically got half of America that's obese. That is fucking terrible. I actually think, and that was a 2023 or 2024 study. That wasn't a 2025 study. I can't wait until 2026. All right, to read that study. It says, "Now the Lord Yahweh have sworn his oath by his name, by his own name, the pride of Israel. I will never forget the wicked things you have done." It says, "The earth will tremble for your deeds, and everyone will mourn. The ground will rise like the Nile River at flood time. It will heave up the sink again. And that day, says the sovereign Lord Yahweh, I will make the sun go down at noon and darken the earth while it is still day. It says, I will turn your celebrations into times of mourning and your singing into weeping. You will wear funeral clothes and shave your heads to show your sorrow as if your only son had died. How very bitter that day will be." Man, y'all don't even understand. That's why we be telling y'all to just repent. It says, verse 11 in NLT, Amos 8:11. NLT, it says, "The time is surely coming, says the sovereign Lord Yahweh, when I will send a famine of the land, not a famine of bread, of water, but the hearing of the word. People will stagger from sea to sea, all right, and wander from border to border, searching for the word of the Lord Yahweh." All right, so they're going to be going to city, comment boards. They're going to be going, all right, across the web, trying to find you, and they ain't going to be able to find us. It says, but they will not find it. All right. So there you go. Like what I said, I got some more, so I'm just gonna keep on flowing. All right, so I'm gonna go into the KJV. KJV. And let me get into this Romans 8. I'm gonna start at 33. This is Romans 8 and 33. And I'll go down to 35. It says, who shall slay anything to charge of the Most High's elect? All right, who shall lay anything to charge the Most High's elect? It is the Most High the justifier. All right. So there you go. Hey, if that ain't a faith booster, I don't know what to tell you. It says, who is he that condemneth? It is Hamashiach that died, that is risen again, who is even at the right hand of the Most High, which is Yahweh Shai. All right, it says, who also maketh intercession for us. It says, who shall separate us from the love of Hamashiach? Shall tribulation or distress or persecution or famine or nakedness or peril or sword? All right, so you gotta ask yourself that in these times, who gonna take you out of this truth? What's gonna take you out of this truth? All right, what's gonna separate you from Yahweh Shem Yahushua? Is it gonna be famine? Is it gonna be a persecution? All right, it's gonna be nakedness. All right, is it gonna be the sword? All right, if they say they're gonna do something to you, you gonna stop? You gonna stop worshiping Yahweh Shem Yahushua? The answer is hell no. All right, let's get this in the NLT. Romans 8 and 11. Who dares accuse us, whom the Most High have chose for his own? No one, for the Most High himself have given us right standing with himself. Who then will condemn us? No one. No one. For Hamashiach Yahushua died for us and was raised to life for us. And he is sitting in the place of honor at the Most High's right hand, pleading for us. So there you go, man. It says, can anything ever separate us from Hamashiach Yahushua's love? Does it mean he no longer loves us if we have trouble or calamity or are persecuted or hungry or destitute or in danger or threatened with death. You see what I'm saying? Like, you can't be moved in this truth, baby. You're not supposed to be easily moved in this truth, man. If you easily moved and, you know, your brain is just easily corrupted, open-minded, you know, to all these wacky, weird-ass ideas, and man, this ain't for you. This is Revelation 18:5. I'm going to read down to 10. It says, "For her sins have reached unto heaven, and the Most High have remembered her iniquities." All right, it's talking about Babylon. Esau, Edom, which, you know, rules. He's talking about America. It says, "Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her. Double according to her works, in the cup which she hath filled to her double." All right. Because this is a wicked place, man. It's slavery. All right, they put us through slavery. They made us, you know, we drank that cup, so they got to drink it now, and they getting doubled. All right, it says, "How much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously, America, so much torment and sorrow give her, for she saith in her heart, I sit a queen, and am no widow, and shall see no morrow, see no sorrow." Pride. "Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord Yahweh power who judgeth her." All right. Verse 9, it says, well, it goes into it, but I'll read it. It says, "In the kings," it goes into something different, but it says, "In the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously," well, don't go into some other, but it says, "Fornication and live deliciously with her, shall bewail her and lament for her," because they're going to see this place burning. All right. It says, "When they shall see the smoke of her burning," see, it says, "standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, the great city of Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come." And we can't wait. And I ain't gonna get this in it. Well, I'll get this in the NLT. I never read it in the NLT. Why not? Revelation 18:5, "For her sins are piled as heaven, as high as heaven, and the Most High remembers for her evil deeds. Do to her as she has done to others, double her penalty for all her evil deeds. She brewed a cup of terror for others, so brewed twice much of her." It says, "For her," it says, "she glorified herself and live luxury. So match it now with torment and sorrow. She boasted in her heart, I am a queen of my throne. I am no helpless widow, and I have no reason to mourn." This is America. America be talking that shit. And you see Trump. You see who leading it, Pharaoh. You know, he's the modern day Pharaoh, Nero Trump. It says, "Therefore these plagues will overtake her in a single day, death and mourning and famine. She will be completely consumed by fire, for the Lord power who judges her is mighty, and the kings of the world who committed adultery with her," all right, all these other nations who making deals with America and stuff like that, "and enjoy her great luxury will mourn for her," because why? That's how they was making their money. All right, they was getting all they, you know, that's how it was going on. Even though they starting to hate America now. Say, "Luxury will mourn for her as they see the smoke rising from her charred remains." It says, "They will stand at a distance, terrified by her torment. They will cry out, how terrible for her, O Babylon, you great city. In a single moment, the Most High's judgment came on you." Okay, so let's go. We're gonna go to the Apocrypha now. And I got about, I got a couple, right? About like 4 precepts in the Apocrypha. Let me get this one. I would just go straight to the point, but I'm going to read it from the top. It says, "Behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy." 2 Ezra 15:1 says, "Behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy, which I put in thy hand, saith the Lord Yahweh." It says, "And cause them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true. Fear not the imaginations against thee. Let not the incredulity of them trouble thee that speak against thee. For all the unfaithful shall die in their unfaithfulness. Behold, saith the Lord Yahweh Shai, I will bring plagues upon the world, the sword, famine, death, and destruction. For wickedness have exceedingly polluted the whole earth, and their hurtful works are fulfilled. Therefore saith the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua, I will hold my tongue no more as touching their wickedness. All right, so, hey, and you see it happening now, which they profanely commit. Neither will I suffer them in those things in which they wickedly exercise themselves. Behold, the innocent and righteous blood crieth unto me. That's the elect. And the souls of the just complain continually. All right, that's the elect, man. The 130 elect. All right, so that's what you got. Let's get that in the. Let's get that in this. All right. So Second Ezra chapter 15 and 1. All right, in the GNT it says the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua says, proclaim to my people the prophetic messages that I will give you, and then, Salakia, it says, and then have them written down because they are true and will be fulfilled. All right, so this will happen. All right, the Lord doesn't lie. It says, do not be afraid of those who plot against you. All right, because there's our whole family gonna try to plot against us, man. They already doing it now. They already talk shit about us now. Plot against you or be disturbed by their unbelief. All unbelievers will die because of their unbelief. So don't even worry about them niggas. The Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua says, I am going to bring terrible disasters on the whole world, war and famine, death and destruction, because wickedness have spread everywhere and evil has reached its limit. Therefore, the Lord says, Yahweh Shem Yahushua says, I will no longer remain silent about the wickedness of these godless people. And man, just look how everybody's living down here, man. It's horrible. I will no longer tolerate it. They have murdered innocent people, and the blood. Hey, you've seen what they've been doing in Gaza, but mainly our people. But you've been seeing what they've been doing in Gaza too, though. Like, and you know what they do to all these other nations, man. These other nations don't like so-called white people, man. They don't like Esau, Edom. It says, in the blood they have spilled, cries out to me for revenge. The souls of the righteous are constantly pleading for vengeance, and we do that continually, brothers. Continually, man. We do that. Let me go on to my next scripture, which is the next chapter. This is Second Ezra chapter 16, and we're gonna read verse 17 on down. Not the whole chapter, down to about verse 28. So it says, woe is me, who will deliver me in those days, the beginning of sorrows, great mourning. It's in the KJV, by the way, the beginning of sorrows and great mournings, and it says the beginning of famine and great death. That's what we are upon, famine and great death. And let's just get a regular definition of famine. We haven't got famine for the whole thing, but we pretty much know what it is. All right. A lack of food, starvation, there you go. An extreme scarcity, extreme scarcity of food. All right, so it's extreme scarcity of food. All right, so let's go back. Where was I? 16, and I'm gonna start at 18. So at the beginning of Sirach 16 to 18. 16 and 19, it says, behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment. Matter of fact, I'll go back up to 18. Second Ezra 16 and 18. It says, the beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars, and the powers shall stand in fear, the beginning of evils. What shall I do when these evils shall come? All right, and one thing, we don't need to be involved in that shit, Even though Jake gonna go out there, try to do what he do, he gonna get shot the fuck up, rolled on, or whatever the case may be, because it be spirits looking for vengeance. And I believe I get that too in here. All right. So anyway, man, it's gonna get bad, man. It's getting bad. It's getting real bad. It says the beginning of wars and the powers shall stand in fear. The beginning of evils. What shall I do when these evils come? And we just now entering the beginning of evil. It says, behold, famine and plague and tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment. It says, but for all these things they shall not turn from their wickedness, nor be always mindful of the scourges. Then shall evils grow upon earth, sword, famine, and great confusion. For many of them that dwell upon earth shall perish of famine. And the other that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy them. All right, so all right, starvation ain't get your ass, but guess what? You be like, I made it from my starvation, thank you. Blow. 380 fucking shot to your head. And there you go, or some type of high caliber round shot to the head. Lord cold, man. Lord cold. It says, verse 22, that's why it's a fearful, that's why you gotta fear the Lord, man. It says, for many of them that dwell upon earth shall perish of famine, and other that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy. And the dead shall be cast as dung. There's not going to be a body bag. There is no body bag. All right, you're just going to be laid out on the street stanking. And there shall be no man to comfort them. Basically, you know how you get to mourn for somebody. They be like, well, you get to mourn for a month, put some mourn for somebody. But I forget how long it is. Slocky, I forget how long it is. But you're supposed to mourn for the dead. Let me see if I can find that. Slocky, give me 2 seconds. Seven days. Ecclesiastes, I'm just going to read it out loud. Ecclesiasticus 12 and 22 and 12 says, 7 days do men mourn for him that is dead. All right. And even in, what do they have? All right, it's cool. So anyway, going back to the scripture, it says, verse 23, it says, and the dead shall be cast out as dung, and there shall be no man to comfort them, for the earth shall be wasted, and the cities shall be cast down. It says, there shall be no man left to till the earth and to sow it. All right, so you don't have no workers in the field, man. It says, the trees shall give fruit, and who shall gather them? All right, nobody picking no berries and stuff like that. You got rid of Issachar. You put Issachar away. It says, the grapes shall ripen, and who shall tread them? It says, for all places shall be desolate of men. All right, because men going to be getting smoked. It says, so that one man shall desire to see another and to hear his voice. It's going to be bad. It says, for of a city there shall be left 10, and 2 of the field. It says, which shall hide themselves in the thick groves and in the clefts of the rocks. All right, because it's going to be fucked up out here, dog. It's going to be messed up. You got people looking for you and shit. You know what I'm saying? So let's get this in the GNT. I remember the brother from GMS Inspiration Almighty, the brother out there in Cali, the elder out there in Cali, he was going into this in the GNT as well. All right, that's 2nd Ezra, the 16th chapter. All right, so this is 2nd Ezra 16. I'm going to start at 17. It says, I'm doomed. Who will rescue me in those days? All right, and our people not thinking like that. All right. Our people not thinking like that at all, man. A lot of our people are fucked. It says, trouble will come, and many people will groan. Famine will come, and many will die. Wars will come, and the world powers will tremble. Disaster, because it's going to be out of their hands. Because you just got Yahushua, you got the Lord doing what he want to do. It's all right. He been doing what he wanted to do. All right. It's not a moment in time he wasn't. It says disasters, Salaki. I said disasters will come, and everyone will be terrified. What will people do when these disasters come? They don't have no cloak. All right. They don't have Yahushua. They don't have that protector. They don't have that safe haven. It says famine, epidemics, all right, troubles and suffering. All right, you got a lot of people out here, man, because of this government shutdown. They're not going to be able to get their medicine, man. They're going to be trying to go to the streets. In the streets, dog, they ain't nothing but straight up fent. So you're going to see a lot more zombie-looking motherfuckers, man. I'm telling you, bro, it's going to get bad. I'm telling you, a lot of you so-called fat people, y'all about to get real skinny. I'm about to type in something right quick. 2 seconds. What happens? Slovakia. someone loses an extreme amount of weight too fast, right? What happens if somebody loses an extreme amount of weight too fast? Because I'm pretty sure that can put a lot of stress on the body on itself. I just want to see what they say, right? Losing an extreme amount of weight too quickly can serious health consequences. I told you. That's why I told you, like, I'll be saying to y'all, like, I started fasting. Like, when I got into this truth or whatever, I really ain't start fasting until, like, a couple of years later when I started to get out on my own. And I started, like, you know, about, like, 5 years ago or whatever. I started, like, trying to, like, watch, like, my diet. 5, 6 years ago, I tried to really start watching, like, what I eat. Then, like, more and more, like, it came up. But it says losing an extreme amount of weight too quickly can have serious health consequences, while gradual, steady weight loss is generally safer and more sustainable. Rapid weight loss, often defined as losing more than 1 to 2 pounds per week, can, oh man, you niggas gonna be losing way more than 1 or 2 pounds a week, can negatively affect your body in various ways. Muscle loss. It says not just fat. Quick weight loss often leads to loss of muscle mass. All right. It says nutrition deficiencies. All right. It says lack of essential nutrition. Extreme dieting or crash diets can deprive your body of important vitamins and minerals, so leading to deficiencies that can affect everything, from your immune system to your skin care. All right, so you people that got, your immune system might get all the way weak on your ass. You get sick very easy. You get sick, you die. It said gas. It said gallstones. Damn. It says gallbladder issues. Rapid weight loss is a major risk factor of developing gallstones, which are painful and may require medical intervention. It's a lot of you. It's 40. It's over 40% of people in America that are obese. Y'all are about to be losing more than 1 to 2 pounds a week. It is people about to be losing their fucking minds, bro. And I'm a small dude, so I'm good. Lord willing. Lord willing. I hate to be obese, though. If you got some weight on you, if Jake got some weight on him, it's pretty good. You might trim down on some weight during these times, though. I'm just letting you know. It says slow metabolism. It says dehydration. Oh, that's already heart issues, cardiac stress, extreme calorie restriction, and imbalanced diets can lead to irregular heart rhythms and other heart complications. So if you drop your weight too fast, you can have a fucking you can go into cardiac arrest and have a heart attack. Or you could die from dehydration. All right, gallstones. You fuck around and have gallstones. And gall mean bladder. It's in your bladder. Why is gradual weight loss better? It says seven is the other side effects. Other common issues: fatigue, dizziness, constipation, irritability. Oh man, I can't eat. Niggas gonna be going crazy. Hair loss and menstrual irregularities. Salakia. Salakia. Irregularities. All right. Irregularities are frequently reported. All right, so your menstrual cycle, your shit gonna be off. Your whole fucking cycle. I mean, well, menstrual. It said menstrual, right? Yeah, menstrual. Yeah, menstrual. So your cycle gonna be off for you women out there. And for you women out there, if you can't go into the store with your EBT and I guess you're going to buy food and stuff like that off your EBT. I don't know if you can buy tampons and stuff like that. But, I had another thing. Let me just type this in. I want to type this in as well because I want to put this in for the women. What happens if women don't have access I don't access to tampons and pads anymore. All right, this is a valid question. Niggas be like, oh, that's just weird. Why would you ask ChatGPT that? But I went on to this. I actually got a screenshot of this. I don't feel like pulling up all my photos and shit. So I'm just gonna see what they say right here. For women and people who menstruate lose access to tampons or pads and other menstrual products, the consequences can be significant and far-reaching and affecting health, education, uh, dignity, and equality. And we're not equal. Men are not equal to women, so I don't know why they said equality. Anyway, it says increased health, increased risk of infection. All right, so that's always bad because that comes with an odor. All right, it says without proper menstrual products, this is for you ladies out there. It says without proper menstrual products, people may resort to using unsafe alternatives like old rags, newspaper, or even leaves. You bitches gonna be out of luck, man. You're gonna be rubbing, you don't even know what type of leaves you wiping your ass with. It might be poison ivy, it can be anything. Yo, wee buddy. It says, man, y'all don't even know. It says these that can lead to a different type of infection. Anyway, it says these can introduce bacteria and lead to infections such as urinary tract infections, UTIs, reproductive tract infections, or toxic shock syndrome. Poor hygiene, lack of access make it difficult to maintain proper hygiene. You're gonna be stinking, which can cause discomfort, odor, and skin irritation. You're gonna be itching. It's gonna smell, and you're just gonna be oozing out. That's horrible. But for you 2/3 women, who gives a fuck? Social and emotional impact. So you got these women. They was talking about selling the box since they can't get food and stuff like that, right? Uh, Hey, if you can't get no tampons and you come around a man and you ain't had no tampons and no pads for 2-3 months, and you try to come around him with that funky monkey, oh we. And this another setup, man. If you can set these hoes up, man. You can be like, hey, I got feminine products at this location. Or, yeah, I don't know, man. They might be like, hey, the government might be like, hey, we got feminine products for females or whatever. And then when you go in there, you're getting shot in the head on some Gaza shit. Who knows? Who knows? I can see people using feminine pads and feminine products as a trap. Just saying. Food as a trap and feminine products as a trap. I can see that. Drugs as a trap. I can see that. So it's going to be loose. It's going to be crazy out here. All right. It says reduce participation. It says many may avoid school, work. Ain't gonna be no school, work, or social activities anyway during their periods, leading to so they just gonna be stuck in the house. It says economic effects. It just says work and schools. It say increase inequality and dignity. Loss of dignity. Menstrual products are essential for dignity and comfort. Without them, individuals may feel powerless and humiliated. And maybe the Lord got to strip that from you bitches, All right, homemade solutions may attempt to create reusable cloth pads or other makeshift products, but these require proper cleaning and resources that may not be available. So you bitches is chalked. All right, y'all chalked. All right, so anyway, going back to this second Esdras, and I'm about to start wrapping this up too. This is second Esdras chapter 16 and verse 19. Famine and epidemics, troubles and suffering are sent to punish and correct people. All right. They said, well, I'll go back up to 18. It says, troubles will come and many people will groan. Famine will come and many will die. Wars will come and the world's powers will tremble. Disasters will come and everyone will be terrified. What will people do when these disasters come? Famine, epidemic, troubles, and suffering are sent to punish and correct people. All right. It's better to being corrected then instead of being corrected when shit hit the fan. It says, but in spite of all this, they will not turn away from their sins. They soon forget their punishment. It says the time is coming when food will be so cheap that people will think at time of peace. And plenty has arrived, but then disasters will spring up everywhere. Wars, famine, and great confusion. Many people on earth will starve to death, and those who escape starvation will be killed in war. Their corpses, it says their corpses will be thrown out like garbage. All right. So there you go. It says, and there will be no one left to comfort the living. The earth will be deserted and its cities demolished. All right. And like what I said, how you got a funeral. You know what I'm saying? Somebody die. You get to mourn for them or whatever. It ain't gonna be none of that. It ain't gonna be no. Oh, it's gonna be okay, Billy. And shit. You be lucky to even have a family member with you in them days. It says, um, verse 24 says, verse 24 says, there will be no one left to plow the land or plant it. Trees will bear their fruit, but there will be no one left to pick it. It says, grapes will be ripened, but there will be no one left to make wine. It says, there will be desolation everywhere, and a person will long to see the face of another human being, or even to hear another person's voice. Only 10 will be left out of a whole city, and in the countryside, only two, who have hidden in the forest or in the caves. All right, it says, when a olive grove in the harvest, 3 or the 4. Well, no, that's pretty much it. All right, so let's get to Sirach. All right, like what I said, man, it's gonna be bad, bro. It's gonna be bad, man. It's gonna be bad, man. This is Sirach or Ecclesiasticus chapter 39. All right, it's 28. It says, there be spirits that are created for vengeance. All right, and the Lord letting them bad boys loose. That's him, an example of him showing his power. It says, which in their fury lay on sore strokes in the time of destruction. They pour out their force and appease the wrath of him that made them. Fire and hail and famine and death, and all these were created for vengeance. See, teeth of wild beasts and scorpions, serpents, and the sword punishing the wicked to destruction. It says they shall rejoice in the commandment. All right, so let's get this in the GNT. All right, let's get this in the GNT. Sirach 39 and 28. It says, in the GNT, it says, there are winds that were created to bring punishment, fierce enough to move mountains. In times of judgment, they unleash their strength and calm the anger of their maker. And what you see in Jamaica right now is going crazy too. By Tuesday at 8 a.m., well, not 8 a.m., it's almost about to touch, and at 9 a.m. it's supposed to touch down Hurricane Melissa in Jamaica, Kingston, Jamaica. It says, in times of judgment, they unleash their strength and call the anger of their maker. It says, vicious animals, scorpions, and snakes, the sword that destroys the wicked, fire, hail, famine, and disease. These have all been created as punishments, man. All right, these was all created as punishments. All right, so I got one more scripture, and then I'm going to close. It's Sirach 40, and 7 through 15. So it says, Sirach or Ecclesiasticus chapter 40 and 7 in the KJV. It says, when all is safe, he awaketh and marveleth that the fear was nothing. Such things happen unto all flesh, both man and beast, and that is sevenfold more upon sinners. Death and bloodshed, strife and sword, calamities, famine, tribulation and the scourge. These things are created for the wicked, and for their sakes came the flood. That's why and you know what's crazy? Why do y'all crocodiles for bringing up these scriptures? Because when I was out there and I was teaching and preaching yesterday, I was saying that the first, it was a couple people out there, but I was like, hey man, this place had to go first by the flood, by water, and now this place about to go by fire. All right. Continuing on in verse 11, it says, all things that are of the earth shall turn to the earth again. All right. A lot of you niggas that die gonna be going right back. I'm just saying. And that which is of the waters doth return into the sea. All the bribery and injustice shall be blotted out, but true dealing shall endure forever. All right. It says, the goods of the unjust shall be dried up like a river, and shall vanish with noise like a great thunder and rain. While he openeth his hand, he shall rejoice, so shall transgressors come to naught. It says, the children of the ungodly shall not bring forth many branches. All right. Because, and you got to think about these churches and stuff, because they're going to be seeking the prophets. All right. And these people is wicked. All right. It says, but are as unclean roots upon a rock, upon a hard rock. That means their foundation is built upon wickedness. All right. Whatever they learned and stuff, they learned that whole time. So, like what the scripture says, a old bottle, you can't give an old bottle new wine, I believe. What's that scripture? In which it was talking about, like a man, somebody, let's say somebody been in Christianity for 35 years, and then right before they on their deathbed now and be like, oh, and then you try to teach him the scriptures. You can't. Come on, man. He been filled with that Christianity bullshit for the longest. You better on not even trying. Give me 2 seconds. I just want to see if I can find it. Matthew 19:7. Matthew 19:7. They say unto him, why did Moses then command to give a writing of divorcement to put away? Nah. Oh, Salakia 9:17. Salakia. I'm like, what? That can't be it. I'm like, Moses. Matthew 9:17. Neither do men put new wine into old bottles, else the bottles break, and the wine runneth out, and the bottles perish. But they put new wine into new bottles, and both are preserved. Okay. Let me get this parable in the NLT. It says, and one puts new wine into old wineskins, for the old skins would burst from the pressure, spilling the wine and running of the skins. It says new wine is stored in new wineskins, so that both are preserved. All right. All right, so let me go back. All right. Sirach 40 and where was I? Death. All these things. Let's see. I start at 10. Sirach 40 and 10. These things are created for the wicked, and their sakes came to flood. It says all these things that are of the earth shall turn to the earth again, and that which is of the waters doth return into the sea. It says all bribery and injustice shall be blotted out, but true dealing shall endure forever. The goods of the unjust shall be dried up like a river, and shall vanish with noise like a great thunder and rain. While he openeth his hand, he shall rejoice, so shall transgressors come to naught. The children of the ungodly shall not bring forth many branches, but are as unclean roots upon a hard rock. All right, because these people are just, whole foundation is built. They roots, they foundation is Christianity and bullshit, false gods. While our rock is Yahweh Shah. All right, Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shah. All right, but they put their roots on them false gods. That's why you niggas gonna die from starvation. All right, but so let's get this in the GNT, and then we gonna close. Sirach 40 and 7 through 15 in the GNT. It says, just as we are about to be caught, we wake up and are relieved to find there is nothing to be afraid of. Here is what all creatures, both human and mammal, much face. It says, verse 7 again, we read that again. It says, just as we be running from our, verse 7, it says, just as we are about to be caught, we awake up and leave to find there is nothing to be afraid of. Talking about, like, when you sleep. All right, but anyway, going on, it says, here is what all creatures, both human and animal, must face. All right, It says, but in 7 times worse for sinners. All right, and 7, we know that meaning completion. All right, so however way the Lord see fits, how your ass was living down here in wickedness, that's how your ass gonna go out. All right, he gonna make you go out, whatever, a specific death for you, for a specific person. Death, violence, conflict, murder, disaster, famine, sickness, epidemic, all of these things were created because of the wicked. They are the ones, but our people, of course, 2/3 gonna get caught up in that. They are the ones who have caused destruction. Everything that comes from the earth goes back to the earth, just as all the water flows into the sea. Nothing, it says, the results of evil. Nothing that comes from bribery or injustice will last, but the effects of loyalty will remain forever. Wealth that has been obtained, dishonesty is like a stream that runs full during a thunderstorm, tumbling rocks along as it flows, but then suddenly goes dry. It says the children of ungodly people will not leave large families. All right, so that ain't happening. Ain't no generational wealth and all that bullshit. They are like plants trying to take root on rock. All right, like reeds. All right, it says like reeds along a riverbank. It says withering before another plant. It says act of kindness and charity are as lasting as eternity. All right, so like what I said, man, our people be following Esau and his technology and stuff like that, and trying to praise his system and stuff like that, and they gonna end up getting chipped, and you gonna fall to the wayside. All right, because of the famine that's going on. So a lot of people gonna be like, well, I ain't trying to starve no more. A lot of people been starving. They gonna be like, well, this is how you don't starve no more. Take this, you know. So with that, I'm gonna give all praise and honor and glory to Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, Hashem Kakwadash. All right, Lord willing, this was edifying.